Sixth graders, today we're going to work on what are called mental math strategies. And mental math strategies are ways of putting together numbers and using the rules that we learned about the commutative property and the associative property and things like that. Using those rules to do problems maybe in a different way than they are written, so that you can combine numbers in a way that helps you to do the math mentally or in your head. So our goal here, what we're going to try to do is put the numbers together to make powers of 10. All right? Because powers of 10 are easy to multiply, they're easy to add, they're easier to subtract. And so if we can combine the numbers, either add them together or subtract them in order to make a power of 10, then it will make the problem easier to do. So, look at this example. 14 plus 27 plus 26. Okay? If we look at these numbers, what you may see is that if we add 4 and 6, 4 ones and 6 ones are 10 ones. And so we could add 14 plus 26 first in order to make a power of 10, or a 10 number. And then add that to the third number. Now, we can switch the order of the numbers because of what property? Do you remember? Associative is moving the parentheses around, but to actually move this number and write it in a different order is called the commutative property. So, if you think of it this way, 14 plus 26 first, do 14 plus 26, and that's 40. And then add 40 and 27 in your head. And 40 plus 27 is 67. So you can do this problem mentally by combining these two numbers first to make 40 and then adding 27. It just makes it a little bit easier. You don't have to carry any numbers when you add the ones. You don't have to regroup. And so you can do this mentally by changing the order of the numbers. Again, what are we trying to do? Combine the numbers to make powers of 10, or tens, or hundreds, or thousands. In this case, we're making 40, because 40 plus 27 is easier to do. Raiden?
That makes way more sense, because I thought when you did 14 plus 26 equals 4, 40 plus 27 equals 67. I thought you meant like 14 plus 26 is the same as 40 plus 27, and that made no sense to me because I did not understand.
No, so when I explained it to you,
yeah,
then it makes sense. Yeah, and that's why sometimes you want to wait until I explain it to you before you start to think, oh, I don't get this, right? So don't think to yourself, oh, I don't get this, until you've had it explained. All right? Let's look at this method. This method is sometimes called the compensation method. What we're actually using is what's called the distributive property. And what you do in the distributive property is you take the big number, like 83, and you think of 83 as 80 plus 3. 80 plus 3 is 83, right? So that's the first step, is to break apart that number. Now, we're actually doing 3 times 83. Okay? So if you think of it this way, well, 3 times 80, I could do that in my head. 3 times 80, well, that would be the same as 3 times 8, and then put a 0 on the end. 3 times 8 is 24, so 3 times 80 is 240. Right? Are you with me so far? Then do 3 times 3. You can do that in your head. 3 times 3 is 9. So we're really doing 240 plus 9 to get the answer. 240 plus 9 is 249. Olivia.
How do you know how to times the 3?
3 times this one?
Yeah.
So when you break apart the number, 80 plus 3 is the same as 83. And then you have to multiply the 3 times both numbers. That's what these arrows are showing. Is I'm multiplying the 3 times 80, and then the 3 times 3, and then adding those two numbers together.
Did you trust them? Like, where did you trust them? It wouldn't be add.
You mean, well, I can't plus them because it doesn't say 3 plus 3.
It doesn't say times either.
Yeah, this parentheses, the parentheses mean times.
Oh!
Okay? When you see a number in parentheses and then a number outside of the parentheses, that means times. So, look at this. Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. So when we started, it says 3 times 83 like this. 3 times 83. When the 83 is in parentheses, this is how you read this expression. 3, and then since there's parentheses around it, it means times 83. Okay? 3 times 83. Now, if it was 3 plus 83 like this, sometimes you'll see a parentheses around it, but there's a plus sign outside of it. Then that doesn't mean times. That actually just means plus. If you see a plus sign, then that means to add. If there's no other sign in between, then what does it mean, Matt? If there's no other sign in between, then it means times. Yep. So then the parentheses mean times in this case. Okay? Yep. Just leaving this for you. Okay.
Is it a puppy?
Look at this one. Look at this one. We're multiplying 3 numbers in this case. In the first one, we were adding 3 numbers. Now we're multiplying 3 numbers. Now, Tate, go back to our goal. What is our goal here when we're doing mental math?
Combining numbers to make power of 10.
Yeah, so look at these 3 numbers. Are there 2 numbers that we can combine first to make a power of 10? Hillary?
Oh no, I just asked you to explain the parentheses times thing.
Okay, I will come back to that. Okay, I will come back to that again. Can anyone show me which 2 numbers could we combine first to make a power of 10? Trevor?
Well, 4 times 25.
Yeah, exactly. 4 times 25, we know. 4 times 25 is?
I know. What's
100? 100. Yep. 4 times 25 is 100. And since these are all multiplication, we can use the commutative property to put the 25 first. So you can do a 44 times 25. 4 times 25 is 100. Okay, now we have made 100. And then do 100 times 18, which is just 1,800. And so, again, by changing the order of the numbers that you multiply, it can make it easier to do it mentally. Okay? It's much easier to do 4 times 25 mentally than it is 4 times 18 mentally. Or 18 times 25 mentally. So combine the numbers first that you can use to make a 10, power of 10. Let's go to your assignment. Open your books to page 30. Open your book to page 30. 10 seconds. 9, 36 plus 71 plus 29. Okay? Now, here's how I want you to do this. To show your work, to show me the mental process you're using, I want you to just rewrite it to use a mental math strategy. If you look at the 6 and the 1, that doesn't make a 10. But the 1 and the 9 make a 10. So we can add these two numbers to make a power of 10. What's 71 plus 29? 100. So I want you to write 100 and then plus 36. Okay? So add these first to make 100 and then add 36. So we're using mental math, but you're also showing me how you're getting the 100 first, instead of just writing 136. Okay? Show me how you are doing this by writing down the first answer and then doing the next step.
If you do it like this, just like rewrite the entire problem, but just in a different order, would you put 71 plus 9, 29 in parentheses?
As long as you write 100 underneath it or after it.
Okay.
Okay? Olivia?
I'm confused because I thought you had to do the parentheses first.
Yes, but we can also use the rule of the associative property. And the associative property says that if it's all addition, if all the numbers are being added, then we can add them in a different order. And then without changing the answer. We can use that, that rule to our advantage in this case.
But does it have to be 10? Do you have to try to get to the power of 10?
Well, for the mental math strategy, yes.
Okay, so it has to be the power of 10 first.
That helps you to do this mentally. Because otherwise you're adding these two, which would be
7 plus 3, that's not
100.
170. Oh wait, no, 107.
107 plus 29. We know it's 136, right? But if you make 100 first, then it's pretty easy to add these two. Okay? You could do this mentally by just doing it in that order. But since we can use the associative property, let's use it. And add these two first. Okay? Number 15. Here is where this, oh no, not in this case, but Hillary, you had a question about parentheses. Yep. So, in this case, we have 13 times 6 times 5, right? Now, the rule with parentheses is, Hillary, we could rewrite this as just 13 times 6 times 5. And just put them right next to the parentheses. Because parentheses mean multiply. Okay? So if you see a number in parentheses and a number right outside the parentheses, that tells you to multiply. Okay?
Is it okay if we just do times 5?
So yeah, in this case, what we can do is make 13. We can change what we do first again. Let me do this. Can we change? Can we move the parentheses and do that first?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that makes 30. Okay.
Wow.
30 times 13. Then can you do 3 times 13 in your head? Peter?
It's 39.
39. So that means 30 times 13 is 300.
I have a question.
Read it.
Can't you just give the 3 to the 6 from 13
Give the 3 to the 6.
and make it a 10?
I don't know how that makes a 10.
Like put the ones place and give it to 6.
Oh, well, what you're thinking of is 13 plus 6.
Oh,
13 plus 6. And you mean change that to 10 plus 9?
yeah.
Except we are doing 13 times 6. So that doesn't work in this case.
I thought it would work because
It would work for plus. If you're doing plus, that would work. Yep. You just missed the time sign. Okay? Olivia.
Do you have to do it down?
I think that it's easiest to show my work going down, especially when you're doing 3 numbers. Because just like when you're doing order of operations, you can keep track of what you haven't done yet more easily. Okay? Yeah.
Okay, look what, okay, so I did 13 times 6 is 78, and then I did 78 times 5 is 390.
Okay.
that's the same answer.
So I did it a different way. Can I use that way?
Well,
It gets the same
what our
answer.
goal, Matt, here, our goal is to use a mental math strategy. Okay?
I don't like this one.
You can use that way, but on some of these problems, I want you to try to put the numbers together in a way that makes a 10 number, or 100 or 1,000. Okay? How about number 16? We'll do one more together.
Well, how many do we have to do it all?
A lot. Number 16. 8 times 66 times 5. Can you make a 10 number first? Andreas?
80 times 5?
80.
No, 8 times 5?
Oh, 8 times 5. Do 8 times 5 first. And then write 40. And then 40 times 66. Do 40 times 66. Bennett? 888. But how can you use a mental math strategy?
I know.
Oh, I can
Johnny?
I did 40 times 6 and then 40 times 60.
Yeah. 40 times 6.
I got 2,000.
And add that to 40 times 60.
I got 2,640.
Uh-huh.
I have mine.
So this is 66. Four times 6 is 240. Because 6 times 4 is 24. And so 40 times 60 is 2,400. And if you add those two, you get,
I thought you had to do it mentally.
well, you can do that mentally, but if I did it mentally, then you wouldn't be able to see what I was doing, right?
Oh.
So I'm writing it down so that you can see the thought process. The cool thing is each of these is like its own kind of puzzle. that you can put the pieces together in a different way. And you can choose how to do this in a way that makes sense, in a way that makes it faster for you, easier for you. I want you to do 14 through 20, let's see, 25, 14 and 25.
5 more questions.
Can we do even? Wait, can we do even?